Hello, extra time.
It's point to the league not to get a hook because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
Simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit and the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to a brand new season of the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke Jordan. Delighted to say once again Macdara Ferris is with us this season. Macdara, how are you?
I'm good, Luke. How are you getting on?
I'm fine. You're signed up for another year. 1 year deal signed. Was it late last night?
Yeah, extended my contract for another year. Yeah.
Excellent news. Tom O'Connor will be also joining us a little later on. We're back anyway after a long off season, as we all know, with the League of Ireland. We've lost to get through in this episode. Later on, we'll be previewing the First Division clubs. Last year, obviously, we had a big episode for the season kicked off, previewing all the 10 Premier Division clubs. This year, we brought the podcast back a little bit earlier, a week earlier, just to include the First Division also. We will be chatting about Pats and Rovers and their prospects this season, and we'll chat about the President's Cup. Before we get into all of that, Macdara, what are you hoping to see from the league this season?
About the league, I thought in Irish football in general, I'm looking forward to actually Ireland getting a manager at some stage. That would be nice this year. In terms of the league, I think the continuation of the big crowds and there'll be much look at Tala with the new North Stand that's available. I think the President's Cup, which we're going to talk about, I think Pat's got an allocation of 1,800. They sold them out pretty quickly, got another 500. So I think they're getting the East Stand to be close to, I think, 2,300 tickets, maybe a little bit more. And I know Shamrock Rovers up to last week that said they'd sold 4,000 tickets for the President's Cup, which is pretty impressive when you have to go and physically buy a ticket. So the new North Stand will be open. That's where the family stand will be for Shamrock Rovers this year. But for the first game of the season, Rovers have been playing the friendlies away or in Roadstone, will be the President's Cup this Friday. You could easily get a crowd that's over 8,000 for that, ahead of the first league fixture, which is a visit of Dundalk in Tala for the first night of the season. And again, that'll be a really big crowd. Like a lot of clubs, Rovers have sold a huge amount of season tickets. I think it's definitely over 4,000 season tickets as well. So I suppose the continuation of the big crowds. I see Bows have already sold out all their season tickets and their membership, and season hasn't even started yet. So a continuation of that through the year would be great. Yeah,
I think a few things that you touched on. I was actually Irish manager might come back to actually later on in terms of where that's going. Okay. But the one thing I suppose I'm looking forward to this year, and we were chatting off earlier briefly, was I'm hoping this year we have a title race. I know the last couple of years there's been glimmer of them, kind of Derry, and then Pats are like this is kind of the question, can they? And then you see Rovers kind of drift away towards those last 10 games, they kick into gear, and they have a title race kind of ends in the final third. I'm hoping this year there might be a title race. I think probably chat more with the preview of Pats, but I think they have strengthened well, and I think Derry as well with the kind of maybe rebuilding the Dundalk team a slight bit up north, like that could be another candidate as well, a bit stronger this year. So that's something interesting. President's Cup, let's just start with that. Actually, you mentioned there about the attendance. I'm surprised it's not a 50-50 split for the President's Cup yet. Like, is Rovers is a home game for Rovers still?
Well, what I do know is like Shamrock Rovers are producing a program for this game, and it's a Shamrock Rovers program. It's not an FAI program. So by that account, I think the match was assigned to Shamrock Rovers as the home game. So, but the way the ticketing is set up in Tala this year, the East Stand is available for for away fans, and that holds, it's less than 3,000. I think it's 2,900. And they'll probably bring either end in a little bit, so there'll be lost seats. I can't remember the term, but anyway, they'll bracket off seats at either end. But I was a little bit surprised maybe Pats didn't get 2,500 tickets. But certainly the last Pat's tweet that I saw come out was talking about 2,300 tickets. So yeah, but it does seem to be assigned as a home game to Shamrock Rovers. And I know when Pat's fans went to buy tickets, they were directed to Shamrock Rovers website to buy tickets like you would normally get for away game. When away fans go to buy tickets with the link, it goes to the home club. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because I suppose with the growth of the game, the growth of the attendances, and just I'd have friends who'd be casual Leave Ireland fans, like the usual kind of check in results maybe on Salt Score, Live Score, but they just kind of said to me on a passing comment today, but so I'm like, why is the game not in the Aviva Stadium? Because they're kind of equating it to say the Community Shield in England, that kind of
Well,
thing.
that
So
would be yeah,
sorry, go on.
that'd be a sign of really impressive increasing tendencies if we would have a game in an opening game in the Aviva Stadium, and you know I'm laughing at it there. I hadn't thought about it, but in years to come, you look at that the FAI Cup final and that attendance there, and you kind of think, well, yeah, why not? And you would hope to aspire to that, but I think having it in Tala on the night that that new stand is opening, I think is good. I think it's good for the league. Say Shamrock Rovers haven't been playing any games there. I know Pats have. I did see Owen Cowser wrote a quite a good piece in the Irish Sun. He went to both St. Patrick's Athletic games in the Leinster Senior Cup at the weekend. They were playing. I think one was in
UCD and Mocktus.
yeah. So they were both away from home, and you know, I know Longford were playing. Longford played two games. They played Sligo Rovers at home in a friendly, and the night before they were due to play Shamrock Rovers in the Leinster Senior Cup. And actually, they moved that game to Roadstone because they didn't want to have two games in 2 days on their pitch. And I know Rovers have ended up playing an under-19 squad, like a lot of under 20. It seems to be this year. I know the other clubs did that. I think Bohemians did the same earlier in the competition. I know, say, Pats used their first team squad for those back-to-back games at the weekend in the Leinster Senior Cup.
President's Cup then, glorified friendly or competitive game? What do you think?
Well, I was talking to Rory Gaffney for that Shamrock Rovers program, and I was kind of asking him about it, and you know, he was saying, well, actually, okay, it's their first game in Tala, so he was really looking forward to that. And also he was noting just that when Rovers have been playing their games, they've been playing back-to-back games on a Saturday, and mixing it up with some of the under 20 teams coming in. And then I know I was at the one of the preseason friendlies. They played Lucan, and you know, at half time there was huge number of substitutions. So with a game like this, you're only allowed the 5 substitutes. There is a bit of silverware. It's not quite bragging rights. It's not. I'm not going to go, Jose Mourinho winning the Community Shield, but it'll feel like a competitive game for both sides because they're going to be playing in front of a really, really big crowd. It is live on television. I have that right, or am I? It is live on the TV Friday, is it, or am I wrong?
I'll double check that book one.
Maybe I'm wrong because I think maybe I'm thinking of the opening game of the season, which is the Rovers Dundalk game, and it's against, you know, it's the two team, like it's Pats obviously won the cup, that's why they're there, but they, you know, you mentioned earlier on, Luke, about a title race, and you know, at different stages towards the end of the season, it was Derry City putting pressure on Shamrock Rovers, and then it was St. Patrick's Athletic, and then yeah, they did kind of fall away. I think in the end, Rovers won the league by 7 points compared with 13 points and 16 points the previous years. But you know, if we're talking about a title race, who are the favourites for the league? Who are the teams that are going to be challenging up the top? It'll be Rovers, it'll be Pats, and as you said, it'll probably be Derry. So I think, yeah, it is still a friendly, but I wouldn't quite, wouldn't quite call it like that. There's bragging rights, even just kind of set a maybe marker if Pats could come to Tala and win. Take that trophy. Think in previous years it's played over 90 minutes, doesn't go to extra time. If it's level at the end, it'll go to penalties. So I think, you know, both teams will be looking to win it. I'm just put an early marker down. Rovers an absolute rubbish start to the season last year. They didn't win a game in the league when it got going until their 7th game. So they don't want to be starting. They don't want to be starting cold. Like they did maybe in terms of the league last year. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to come back on the game, just from a quick Google search, it's on LOI TV, it seems. So that's where the game is on. Okay. So it's on LOI TV. And again, I should probably plug it as a League of Ireland podcast. I should plug LOI TV. It's a great asset. Please.
Yeah, like
don't illegally stream. Please buy the pass.
You know, absolutely. And you get a chance to assign your club to it, and then your club will get a cut of it. From a media point of view, I was chatting to one of our new reporters starting this year, and they were kind of asking me about kind of, you know, you go to the Aviva Stadium, Luke, you've done some of the internationals, and you get your your TV to do the kind of replays and whatever. And LOI TV is a godsend, just makes the job a little bit easier for us reporting, particularly as it's nicely about kind of 40 seconds behind. So a goal goes in and you can just make
Get
sure
the phone out and have a look.
well, you can just make sure that you're getting the assist right. Who played the pass before the assist as well. That second assist can be helpful as well. So yeah, it is it's a handy process to take to have as well. But yeah, definitely for fans of other clubs, it's definitely making sure that you buy. I think it's €120, and I say the money's going to your club.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just when you were kind of chatting about there, the TV getting ahead, like that's something that should be on TV. I know I penned the question: is it barber friendly? Is it a competitive game? It is kind of the kick-off to the League of Ireland season. Irish football probably should be on television.
Yeah, but it is new, so it's a competition that came. There was a President's Cup previously, but it kind of come back and with Michael Lee Higgins become president of Ireland. Someone who's steeped in League of Ireland, was the former president of Galway United, and undoubtedly, I'm sure he will be there on Friday. But I think talking about the TV, there's RTE have named 3 games with a 4th game to come. Virgin Media did their media day a couple of weeks ago, and they've assigned a number of games as well. So the start of the league will be well covered by both RTE and Virgin over the start.
Yeah, and just mentioned the Virgin there. That's another positive league where we're talking about TV coverage. Come back in again. I think 14 games are shown this year, is it? 14?
It's as many as that, but they did even the fact that they did like a media day, and so there was 4 players from each of the teams came in, and it just gave the league a bit of they did a bit of a media across that, and then the league launch is happening this week, so that people will see plenty of material right across, and the league launch, it's Premier Division, it's First Division, it's a women's Premier Division as well. So there'll be lots of material that people will see in the newspapers, on the radio, in the podcasts ahead of the league kicking off on Friday week.
Shamrock Rovers, then we might as well get the previews beginning here. I suppose they are the champions. I suppose the only way to deem success is to keep breeding success. Like their only objective is win the league again.
Yeah, it is, but I think they'll definitely have that eye on Europe, because that was the big failure of last year, and I'll call it a failure, not just even a disappointment. They played 4 games, lost all 4, and were out in a very difficult July when they also were beaten in the FAI Cup by Dundalk, and the famous 1980s Shamrock Rovers 4 in a row side also won 3 doubles in a row, and this Rovers team haven't won an FAI Cup during their league title. A big springboard to their success was winning the FAI Cup in 2019. So they'll have that in mind. But yeah, the focus will be on 5 in a row, and you saw that with the re-signings of some of the key players like Rory Gaffney, like Jack Byrne, and I think Rovers have done very good business. They've lost 2 really crucial players from their 4 in a row side, with Alan Manus and Ronan Finn. But Finn had played, I think he started 13 league games last season. So, Alan Manus was injured for the middle of the season, and Leon Pauls came in and kept 9 clean sheets in 14 league games. So the players that they've lost, people will have seen Naj Razi's gone to Como. He played 6 games last year in the league. He only started 6 games totally. Only started one league game. That was the penultimate game of the season when Rovers had wrapped that up. And so he's gone elsewhere. Rovers have earned 450,000 by the reports in the papers, with add-ons that could double that up. But in relation to the kind of players that they've brought in, and they've re-signed all the loan players that they had last year, with Trevor Clark becoming permanent. They brought in Aaron McAniff on loan, but that's a permanent deal. And Darragh Burns is on loan as well. And he's, I was looking at his stats on Y-Scout from when he was in the league last time in 2022 with St. Pat's, and he topped the dribble charts. It was 9.1 per 90 minutes. And the second highest completion rate for those dribbles, and then in terms of crosses, third highest, with the second highest percentage complete. And then the last stat to drop in, he was the third highest with this progressive runs, which is a real attacking option. And that was behind Neil Ferrugia. So I think he'll come in. I don't quite know where he'll play. Chatting to one of the Rovers players, over winter, he was talking about, maybe in a kind of a number 10 role, but then you have Graham Burke, you have Aaron McAniff. But I think Rovers have done really well in their off-season signings. Not a huge. This always generally after the big clear under Stephen Bradley, it's more been kind of evolution rather than that initial revolution. And we'll probably talk about maybe how Pats have done, and maybe have Derry have done in the transfer window as well. But I think Rovers fans are, I'd say more than reasonably pleased with how their business was done over the winter. And of course, the main thing is they've hung on to Stephen Bradley as the head coach.
Yeah, and I suppose I've one question probably to ask you about the team itself. I think first of all, in terms of transfers, I think Aaron McAniff coming back in is excellent for the league for stars. And regardless of club colours, you want best players, you want good players playing in the league. If him come back into the league, it makes the league stronger, in my opinion. And obviously, of course, makes Shamrock Rovers feel much stronger. That Byrne McAniff midfield again, which we know was outstanding back in 2019-20. But my question to you would be, with your Shamrock Rovers hat on, be if I'm an opposition manager now, I'm A, delighted Alan Manus is gone, and B, do they look at Leon Poles as a position where that's where they're going to be very vulnerable this season? Because there's been games where he's played in the past where he has made mistakes, maybe that Manus wouldn't make. So I think that's a possible issue for Stephen Bradley, maybe for the start of the season, that if Leon Poles going to number one, that could be a weak point in the team, a possible weak point, I'll say. Yeah,
like the difference maybe last year is he was very good when he came in. So I mentioned those clean sheet stats, but I suppose he also knew that Alan Manus was coming back and that more than likely he would have to step out again. So whereas this year he is the number one, like Rovers have signed Lee Stacey as the backup goalkeeper, someone with great experience within the league, and I think that's probably what they wanted. The thing about Poles is I think he's 26 or 27. I think people think he's younger than he is because he's actually been at Rovers for quite a long time. But I'm sure there'll be games where opposition managers will be like put him under pressure. Like will he come for crosses? Will he come for corners? It was something that Alan Manus wasn't particularly strong at either. Manus was shot stopping and ball distribution, and Poles is slightly different with his distribution than Manus would. But yeah, that definitely will be a weak point. With McAniff, I think he's carrying a bit of a knock into the start of the season as well. But I think otherwise Rovers are full strength. Like the issue is you have this. It's referred to sometimes, I've heard, as this cloud in midfield as Rovers rotate that within, and not everyone will get game time. But there are potentially weaknesses that managers might look to exploit. So the wing back situation will be Trevor Clark and Neil Ferrugia, and when both of them were injured was that dodgy time in July last year. Now they've signed Josh Holan, from Cork City, and the view is he can play anywhere across that back five. I haven't seen him. Saw him in one game. So I don't know. I don't quite know whether he'd fit. I think he's more of a centre back now, to be honest, than a wing back. But they've got essentially four centre backs with Hoare, Cleary, Lopez, Grace, and Holan as well. So, but every team during the season will have periods where there'll be players that'll be missing through injury, potentially due to suspension. Rovers will hope that they won't have the red card issues that really fed into their disastrous start at they got a couple of players sent off in Drogheda, and the three players sent off in Cork, which people probably remember last year as well. That hopefully that type of thing, they'll be making sure the discipline will be better this time around.
Last thing on Rovers in terms of transfers, Darragh Burns is an interesting side, and obviously I'm saying this through.
Yeah, you would have seen him up close, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying this through gritted teeth. I'm putting my professional hat on here to be really nice. But in terms of Darragh Burns, then where does he fit into the Shamrock Rovers system? Because he's a right winger, and I remember a couple of times tracking back wasn't his best thing sometimes, and he'd be growled at. Now he was young, of course, but the only reason I can see him playing is it was a wing back, and he's defensively
Yeah,
not strong. So
no,
I don't know where he fits into the Shamrock Rovers system. That's kind of where he questioned it.
yeah, I think he more likely be either in that 10 or across the front three. Certainly, I think he's better at tracking back than Liam Burt is. So I think Burns has shown his willingness to get up and back. He was a player the Rovers looked to sign. I think Pats were unwilling to sell him to Rovers at that time, and then he went to MK Dons. And I think last year he had 4 different managers, which I think has fed into him coming back. But it is only on loan, so but it's a season-long loan, and we've talked about this before, that really I think you're looking to bring your players in on season-long loans. You look at Drogheda last year, and they lost a couple of their key players in the middle of the season. Now, they were so successful in that first half of the season that I wouldn't suggest that they coasted towards the end of the year, but they were pretty clear of that relegation battle. But they, I think Turley, I think, was still their top scorer by the end of the season, even though he left in the middle. So, but yeah, I think I don't quite know where. I haven't been at the preseason games, and you're not looking at a formation as to where Burns might be. But I think you're much more likely to have Clark and Ferrugia as wing backs, and but very much kind of going forward, which is Bradley looks to have them very much playing up. It's 3 at the back, not 5 at the back, where some of the other teams will play very much more. I'm thinking of Shelbourne, more 5 at the back rather than 3 at the back.
Last question then, Rovers. 5 in a row. Would you be fairly confident something happened again to win the league?
Yeah, I am, because I think Rovers are probably stronger. You raised a good point in the goalkeeping issue. I say, Poles proved himself successful last year, but I think Rovers are stronger. I think if I look at Derry City, it's like getting the band back together with that Dundalk team. Like I noted here, Daniel Kelly, Patrick Hooban, Mark Connolly, Will Patching, Patrick McElhenney, Michael Duffy, Cameron Dumnigan are all ex-Dundalk, and the manager is ex-Dundalk. I think they've lost Brandon Kavanagh, I think, he probably didn't play as much as he wanted, but I think he'll be very good for St. Pat's. They've lost Keane Kavanagh to Pats as well. So I think if you look at the Pats team, we're going to talk to them in a little bit as well. I don't think they're as strong as they were last year, but I think they'll certainly benefit for a full pre-season under John Daly. I think John Daly proved himself to be a very successful manager. But I think if you were looking at the opposition, I don't think outside of those 3 teams, I don't think Bows will be way worse than they were last year. They haven't been able to bring the players in. They've lost really, really crucial players. I think Dundalk, it's a lot of players they're bringing in from outside of the league. So I think the only teams that are going to put pressure on Rovers to win would be Derry and Pats. And last year, when both sides needed to really put their foot to Rovers' throat, when Rovers dropped points, the likes of drawing with UCD, and then Derry went out and lost the last day, the next day. Similar with Pats as well, but they were thereabouts. And I always say you need to kind of lose one to win one. But if you're asking me, I think Rovers, and also Rovers can't start the season as bad as they did last year. Like that was their worst start in 20 years.
Yeah, and they still ran out comfortable winners in the end. Look, I think if for segue now into Pats, and I think I'm going to start the campaign for the league title come home. I think that's I genuinely think that this Pats team is stronger this year. I think if you're to ask me weaknesses in the side last year, I would have said a creative midfield player, a lack of a number 9. And I think we've dealt with that now. I think the Rory Keaton signing back in November, December was a real statement of intent this year. Got that done early in pre-season. You mentioned Brandon Kavanagh. I think his position Pats didn't have, very reliant maybe on Forrester to be the creative source. And if he was man-marked or wasn't in the game, Pats something struggled to the centre of the park. Having someone like Brandon Kavanagh, probably a similar player in terms of what Darragh Burns gave Pats, that kind of jinky player, a bit of skill, maybe haven't had that since he's gone. I think when Jamie Lennon didn't play past last season, if he was missing, it was a huge loss. Having Aaron Bolger there now is an excellent signing. You have
Yeah.
two really good number 6, you know, Bolger from Untitled Rovers. I think having Connor Keeley in from Drogheda, I think whenever I saw him play in Richmond Park, he was
Excellent.
outstanding. So I think the one area we're weaker is right back. I think losing Sam Kerrs, which was we all know was inevitable, and it's going to be really tough to replace him. But then again, you have Ryan McLaughlin, who was a former Liverpool youth player, barely played last season, but very highly regarded footballer. Like if he stays fit, you have Axel Soyberg as well in that position where the two of them can keep their fitness issues aside. That's good depth there as well. So yeah, I think I'd be fairly confident in a Pat's title charge. I'm hoping they'll run it close. As I said at the open of the show, the final third of the season, the last 4 years, Rovers has run away with it. It's kind of akin to what Dundalk did for years and what Cork City did that year in 2017. They ran away with it. So we haven't really had a title race in a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping this year is the one where, like, we'll probably talk more Jerry next week. But I really hope Pats this year can just just stay in the fight. Like just keep the, as I said, keep the fight to Rovers to try and keep a title race going. And I suppose if I was looking at, like I said, Sam Curtis going is obviously an issue. The one question mark in the past squad every year, really, for the last 4 years, is the goalkeeper one. We seem to have a rotating goalkeeper every year, where we just decide to get a loanee in and see how it works. Now,
Well, this guy's highly rated though. No, this is another.
Yeah, but it's unproven. You know, like it's a kid in goal. Like I can't name many title winners that have an unproven goalkeeper. Like even if you look across the pond to England, Arsenal's biggest issue, for example, in the title race is the decision between Ramsdale and Raya, who's better, and the indecisions cost them points. Like I can't name a team in recent memory that's
as well. Sorry for going to cross you, just in terms of goalkeepers, I'm going to just jump in on that. It's been over a decade since a keeper under 28 has been the starting goalkeeper for a winning Premier Division team. I mean, you have to go back. You look at the likes of Gary Rogers, Mark McNulty, Alan Mannis. You know, they're what they bring to a dressing room, what they bring to a penalty area, as much as their penalty, their shot stopping prowess, or their, whether they dominate the box, their communication, all that comes through experience. So I mean, you go back, you have to go back to the likes of Brian Murphy with Bowes, where you have a keeper under 30 who has won a league. I think Brendan Clark was the last one with Sligo in 2013. He was 28 at that stage. Then you go back a little bit further, you're back to Manus again at Rovers, and then you go back there and you have Brian Murphy at Bowes. And I mean, look, we know how exceptional he was. He got back to England from that. So I think, yeah, you hit a really, really good point. I mean, you have such highly rated keepers now. And I mean, you look at the likes of Brian Maher at Derry City. You look at Yaros a couple of years ago at Pats, there were more exceptions to the rules more so than anything else. Like, so I think like Macdara says, Peluga is a very highly rated player, but he's coming from another league and playing, in the Premier Division. The trend is for goalkeepers in their late 20s to early 30s to be title winners. Sorry for cutting across you. Just whenever it comes to goalkeepers, that's where I just want to jump in on it.
You're okay. Welcome to the show, by the way. I know you joined us late.
Technical equipment malfunction, but we got up and running now.
The other one, Luke,
Yes.
is like Adam Murphy's gone as well. Tommy Lonergan is an interesting one because Waterford were looking for him, and Pats didn't want to sell him to another club in the Premier Division. But Fleetwood, he had a get out clause. He had a
release clause. He's not getting
release clause is the term.
Release clause.
It's not get out of jail in Monopoly, but a release clause to a UK club, which was, I think, a low amount. I think it was maybe 60 to 80,000.
Yeah, 60 grand. I think. Yeah, 60 grand.
Yeah, so Fleetwood have signed him. So whether he'll be loaned from his parent club to Waterford remains to be seen. With Sam Curtis, he's a massive loss. A player who played, he played first division with the Shamrock Rovers two side, at a very early age, and it's maybe a comparison with what Rovers did with Naz Razi, where Razi was under contract, but his contract would have been up at the end of the year when he's 18, and he could have gone where training compensation, Dan McDonnell had the figure in the Irish Independent, it would have been 290,000 if Rovers had held on to Razzie for the year and then he went elsewhere. That would be the compensation. And then they had to weigh it up. Okay, do we hang on to the player, have him for the year, get 290,000 euro, which is a nice amount of money, or sell him now to Como for 450 with add-ons that would double that? So that's typically number of appearances if you sign a contract extension or competitive international starts for the senior team. And then you also get a sell-on clause where Sam Curtis, he ran down his contract, if I can say that, waited till he got to 18, and now he can go to the UK, whereas Razzie's one of a number of players. I think it was about 9. I did a profile piece over the weekend. I think about 9 players have gone to Italy from Ireland, but probably Festi Abasele is probably the one who has been successful. James Abankwa came back on loan to the UK, but actually he's going back out to Udinese as well. And Kevin Zeffi went to Inter and is gone now to Roma, where seemingly he's playing, training with the first team and playing with their Primavera side. And then Justin Ferazai is another one as well. So their players have gone as teenagers across, where they couldn't have gone to the UK until they're 18. But I think Curtis is a big loss for Pats. But I do think, the likes of Rory Keating scored a lot of goals in a Cork City side that got relegated. I think that shows how good a player he is. And maybe Lonergan had scored in the cup final, but I say he's gone elsewhere. I think Mark Doyle will miss as well. He's gone to the US. So, but I think Pats were looking to hold on to Dean Linus, but I think his family were. Okay, and again, the situation we've seen other managers talk about. I think John Daly's talked about it before.
And Bowles, I think Bowles came in late for Linus as well. That was a part too. Bowles for the sneak him in. Yeah,
I think with James Talbot out of action for kind of an unknown time, they were looking to get a more experienced goalkeeper to come in.
Yeah, and look, just to jump back in a couple points there, I suppose the Lonergan one, if you're offered for your fourth choice striker 60,000, I think you take it. I don't see it personally as a loss. And you have Mason Melia and you have King Cabinet there. I don't think he's needed. It's surplus requirement. 60,000, I think you take it in the morning.
Yeah, Mark it's Doyle, just his age and potential.
Of course, yeah. But I just think you offer 60,000 for fourth choice striker and leave and you take it. Mark Doyle had a great end of the season, but I think you ask most Pats fans, he was either brilliant or brutal. That's just the way he played, and I think inconsistency. You're not going to win league titles with inconsistent footballers. Dean Linus is probably the one. Like I said, that's the big loss. And as Tom said, with his stats there with the goalkeeping department, like that's the one Pats needed to keep. And I think that's my only concern with the Pats title charge. Is this guy Pettigrew could be brilliant. He could be outstanding. He probably will be outstanding. Liverpool's record in terms of goalkeepers is outstanding. In terms of young goalkeepers there, and obviously Allison Keller and so on. But just, if that bad start, like we seen last year with David Odamusu at the start of last season, was really poor and cost Pats in the end maybe 6-7 points that, could be the difference between maybe a bit closer to Rovers. So, look, it's interesting. We could be right, we could be wrong, we don't know. But again, my main thing taking this, I really hope we have a title race this season. That's kind of the main thing. Just before I let you go, Macdara, because we touched on the start of the show and you mentioned your kind of intro to the season. Irish manager job, obviously Stephen Kenny removed in November. Carsley's obviously the one they want. It's an obvious love affair. I don't know whether though is this love affair one way. So what do we think? My gut feeling is I don't think he wants it. I think obviously we're just speculating. We've no inside scoop into Lee Carsley's head, but just from reports, is he coming? Is not going? I always think it leads one way in Irish football, and things when we know. It just reminds you of the Grealish, the Rice scenarios where they might be coming, they are coming, and I think this is another case of we think he's coming now. Maybe money will talk. I don't know, but what's your gut feeling? Where do you see this ending up? This saga.
Well, what's been amazing is that there's very few names that have been mentioned, and Carsley always seemed to be top of it. You had kind of Anthony Barry, you had Neil Lennon, who I just wouldn't warm to, and Chris Coleman was been mentioned at one stage. His dad is from Ireland. and it was there's been the FAI have actually kept it quite tight. But then, the last week there was various reports that looked like Carsley was definitely going to take it in Irish media. Then there was reports in the UK media that he definitely wasn't going to take it. And then the latest in the Irish media is like, well, maybe he might take it, that it's whether he's actually looking for more money or whether he's actually looking to see who he might bring in as part of his backroom team. But you don't. They need to have a manager before the friendlies come up. So the two friendlies against, I think it's the first one is the game against Belgium, but in the Aviva Stadium. But they don't necessarily need somebody for the upcoming draw for the Euros. But because that just becomes a bit of a media event where the manager's there and you can talk to them. It'd be better, but it's not but you definitely need to appoint a manager before the friendlies. But it just seems to. If Carsley seems to be the manager that they want. Sorry, Chris Hughton was the other name that was mentioned, but his AFCON was a bit of a disaster. I think the chances of him getting it were pretty. I think we're slim before that, and we're scuppered after Ghana, got eliminated. But so if you want Carsley, like, it just seems strange that they haven't been able to get it over the line. And they've definitely talked to Neil Lennon. He's been doing various bits of media, and they did meet with him. I suppose you have to have a backup plan, but it is
he's been on every TV station as well.
Yeah.
Come and get me.
But it's a little bit frustrating when they always knew, the FAI knew for a couple of months ahead of time that they were going to be getting rid of Stephen Kenny. There was going into those, that last round of games when he was going to Amsterdam, like, that they knew he was going, and it was like, you have to go out and put the feelers out, and it was all the talk about Carsley, and we're still in a situation now coming into start of February, and ahead of that they haven't appointed someone, and if they had last week appointed Lee Carsley, then that'd be it. It would be really clear this was the man that they wanted. They went out and they got him, and now we're back into a situation where, the reports that actually the manager should be living in Ireland. Well, Jonathan Hill isn't living in Ireland, and all our players, virtually all our players. I know I was watching Jacob Ryan playing for Lyon last night, but the vast majority of our players are playing in the UK. And okay, maybe it's as easy to travel from Dublin across to Birmingham and across to Leeds, Bradford, or over to Glasgow to watch a manager than if you're living in the UK. But I don't think that's a sticking point from that point of view. But it's kind of, if now they appoint Lee Carsley, it's probably okay. If they end up appointing Neil Lennon, everyone knows he was second choice, and that he's kind of starts off in a very bad footing with the players, and I suppose with the Irish footballing public in general, if Neil Lennon's appointed, because everyone knows he's not their first choice.
Yeah, it really is Carsley or bust for the FAI, because it doesn't matter in what way they sell the next appointment. If it's not Carsley, it doesn't matter, as you said. Well, everyone knows he's second choice, and straight away.
Yeah, well, they might get a manager out completely out of left field, where actually we didn't think, that manager might be willing. But say the names that have been mentioned, like the FAI have done a very good job of not leaking names, but maybe they just only had the one name that they were dealing with, which was Carsley, and their plan B was Neil Lennon, and that's why they're the only really two names that have been mentioned seriously. Because I think Anthony Barry's in a very good position where he's in relation to his international job, and then working with Thomas Tuchel as well.
Last question before I let you go. What is the general kind of anti-Lennon narrative? Is it the bad that he had a Celtic second time around, or is it just the theatrics around them?
There's a bit of that now. I think he was going for 10 in a row, and he was the manager. I think I'm right. He was the manager when they didn't get. He
was, yeah. But I as a latent Celtic fan, don't necessarily blame Neil Lennon for all of that. Like, Brendan Rodgers walked away. He came into the I personally think some of the criticism against him is pretty harsh. style of football, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be back
Yeah,
to
so
what we've seen on Martin. I think it's a bit harsh to kind of, he's rubbish, doesn't know what he's talking. But when his record at Celtic first time around was pretty good, and pretty good European performances too against opposition like what we're going to be facing when we play top sides. So again, I just think we're a bit balanced. I think some of the criticism is a bit harsh, maybe.
I think the style of football is definitely plays into it, and I think that's merited. I don't warm to him from a personal point of view, so that's my bias kind of coming in. I don't warm to him. He's a very abrasive character, and we saw that on the time when he was Celtic manager. I don't mind a manager kind of, but abrasive will be the term that I would use. Potentially there can always be a bit of Northern Ireland bias, if I can say that as well, potentially, for that. Now, I know, really interesting how his career went, and in the end, he stopped playing for Northern Ireland due to, bullets in the post, pure sectarianism. So, I wouldn't fault him for stepping away from the international game from that point of view. But that would maybe play into it a little bit from some people's point of view, but also he's been out of the game. He was managing in Greece,
Cyprus, Armenia, and he won a cup there as well.
Yeah, I should get that right. We won't mention Irish managers who win cups. We won't talk about Robbie Keane, so maybe that kind of plays into it. And you see him just as a pundit maybe now rather than a manager. So there may be the reasons why there's a negativity around him.
Tom, quick thought on the Irish job. Any person you'd like to see get it?
Funny, I wouldn't mind seeing Neil Lennon getting it, and I know that's not probably not a popular. I wouldn't mind Lee Carsley or Neil Lennon. They're both, obviously Carsley's more experienced underage. It comes with, he's kind of, his star is on the rise at the minute. Neil Lennon has a lot more senior club experience, and he's obviously, his career has taken a different path, and I suppose he's at a different point in his career than Lee Carsley. I honestly wouldn't mind between the two. I think, look, I was listening to a different podcast earlier on today, and they talked about how if the FAI went with went with Carsley, it was a sign of maybe that they were going one direction, whereas if they went with Neil Lennon, they were going a different direction. Whereas when, if you take the women's national team job, that when that Vera Pauw wasn't aligned with the FAI's thinking, whereas and therefore when Eileen Gleeson, who was already in the association, there seemed to be a natural, and obviously Sean during her interim period, that it was a natural progression onto a more permanent, whereas there's a kind of a crossroads here that you either go with Neil Lennon, and like you say, maybe the football mightn't be taking the reins of what Stephen Kenny has taken and built on. Again, there's the question there: pragmatism versus a vision, and are we given time? Are we going to give, if somebody like Lee Carsley comes in, he's obviously used to dealing with younger players rather than older players. There's a huge variation between the two. So I think I wouldn't mind either way, as they're hopefully they're hopefully going to take on. I personally, obviously, there's a Dundalk bias here, but I do believe Stephen Kenny did a good job, and I think, unfortunately, possibly the fruits of his labour won't be seen. Clearly, weren't seen during his reign, but maybe this manager or the next managerial reign, I think people will start to see what Stephen Kenny laid down, especially with the amount of debuts he gave and stuff like that. So look, it'll be interesting. I'm quite happy to sit in the fence and watch how it unfolds.
Yeah, and I think, I think you mentioned a good point there, with Stephen Kenny as well. If you're going with Neil Lennon, for example, are you better off keeping Stephen Kenny there? That's probably another question for another day when the appointment happens, if it happens. Yeah, I think if Carsley comes in, I think you can point to it and say, yeah, I can see the logic in replacing him with Stephen Kenny. Maybe could be a better coach. We don't know. His record in England obviously is very good. He's been well taught. He's at Man City, Brentford, Everton. So he's well established in terms of the English football pyramid in his coaching journey so far. But yeah, I don't know. It's I suppose the other question as well is, you mentioned pragmatism. We've tried maybe division and we've tried the football. There's certain sections of the Irish game who maybe say it doesn't work. We don't have the players. We've heard that narrative before. Is it going back to a pragmatic manager more aligned with the current state of Irish football at the moment? Is it a case of maybe just go all out and make it Roy Keane in? Bring Roy Keane in at the box office, get an Amazon documentary flying the wall, raise money for the association. Macdara shaking his head, doesn't agree. No, okay. Well, he did apparently claim to be interested. He said the Irish job is an option, is his exact word he said in the overlap. But yeah, we'll leave that talk there for another day. But next up now, we're going to chat about the First Division and preview the club, so stay tuned.
Get in touch. You can email us at extratimelive@gmail.com or tag us on Instagram using the hashtag League of Ireland or tweet us at Extratime News.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the second half. Macdara is gone, but Tom O'Connor is still with me. So what we did this year, ladies and gentlemen, really is last year we had a really good Premier Division preview from here from all the 10 clubs to kick off the season. This year we started back a week earlier. A, obviously the President's Cup game was on this week, but B, we decided we wanted the First Division as well. We're conscious that we know sometimes the first Division is getting enough coverage. Sometimes we're very Premier Division focused, and the First Division, to quote a John Delaneyism, the forgotten child sometimes of the League of Ireland. So this year we've tried to bring the First Division. Tom, do you want to explain our idea, what we've done for the previews?
Yeah, I suppose, look, what we did this year, I suppose we've had a couple of new reporters on board in the Extratime team. So we reached out to them and we asked them maybe for some First Division input. And then we reached out to some voices around the league and we got some views there as well. So we've a mixture from across the league. We're still missing a couple of teams, but with the vast majority of teams covered. So the likes of, we've had Rory Merriman, who's joined our team. He's going to give us some UCD predictions for the season. Andrew Dempsey, who has covered a number of teams in the First Division for us, is going to provide a Longford season preview, as well as an interview he conducted with UCD manager Willie O'Connor after a Leinster Senior Cup game this weekend. We also have Rory Morrow, who is dialing in from Finn Harps, telling us about them this year. Ronan McCarthy, many of you will know, has been synonymous with Wexford FC. He gives his thoughts and views on the season ahead for Wexford. We've Tom Stafford, who obviously has been linked with Cobh Ramblers over the years. Tom has given us his views on how Cobh's off-season and how the 2024 season will happen for them, hopefully. We've also then looked at, like I mentioned, Andrew's Longford, and Andrew's also done some work with Bray, and we have James Burns, who another recent addition to the Extratime team this season. James Byrne is giving us his views on Bray Wanderers for the season ahead. The Talk is Treaty podcast. Some of you may be listeners to it, and we spoke to the team from the Talk is Treaty podcast, and we have their views on the 2024 season. So what we've kind of done there, Luke, is we've got a mixture of views from across the league, because we can sit and talk all day, but these guys know their clubs better than we do. So this is where we'll obviously try and tip back in with those guys throughout the course of the season. But like you said, the Premier Division podcast last season got us off to a great start. So we're going to put the First Division and give it its time to shine. And speaking as someone who, while Dundalk is where I spend more time now, I originated with Monaghan United back many moons ago in the First Division. So I have a soft spot for the First Division. So I think it's important that it gets its airtime as much as the Premier Division. So look, it's a different format, and of course we would love your opinions and your views and comments on it. Is it something you'd like us to continue doing, to try and get as wide a feedback across the league as possible, or maybe are there some clubs that fans would like some in-depth interviews on? I know there was a certain appeal regarding Kerry FC last year, because they're for the first season back in the First Division. Obviously Tralee Dynamos were in the A Championship a number of years ago, but Kerry FC, Mount Hawk Park, there was a lot of excitement, and maybe I see they're even making signings right up now. A lot of exciting signings, a lot of new players coming who've already got league experience, the likes of Andy Spain. We see Antonio Tuta is coming down from Finn Harps. So maybe somebody from Kerry would like to come on to the podcast, or maybe some supporters from Kerry would would like to give us their views on things. Similarly, Athlone, we saw how the Vallejo link up last season had very positive impact. I think Athlone took an awful lot of people by surprise last season. So again, if we have some Athlone supporters who'd like to give us their view on things, I suppose those two clubs were the two clubs that I didn't mention there, and maybe throughout the season it'd be nice to hear some thoughts and views from Athlone and Kerry. So that's kind of where we're at the minute, Luke.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, next week we'll have the Premier Division episode as well, which will preview all the clubs. We did slightly touch on Pats and Row. We'll probably mention them again next week when we talk about the Premier Division clubs. But yeah, who are we kicking off with then on our voice notes preview from the First Division?
Well, I suppose we've seen Cork City slip from the Premier Division, and Phillip Morrissey is one of our more long-term correspondents. So we're going to head down to Munster, and we're going to hear first from Phillip on how he thinks Cork are going to do this season.
Cork City have been busy in the transfer market ahead of the new season. The likes of Rory Keating, Aaron Bolger, Joe O'Brien, Whitmarsh have all departed the club, but they were able to retain most of their Premier Division squad from last season, along with some astute arrivals. Jack Doherty, Greg Bolger, Sean Murray, Charlie Lyons and Evan McLaughlin have all signed for the Rebel Army. The two areas at the moment that are perhaps missing are at centre forward and at centre back. They have yet to be addressed. In terms of players to look out for, Jack Doherty figures highly. It was a signing that many supporters had been calling for last season, in fact. He was the spark that allowed Cobh to beat expectations and finish third last year. His link-up play, pace and capacity to make runs from deep will make Cork a potent side on the break. John O'Donovan will be expected to build on the progress he made last year, while the likes of Jayden Uma, Aaron Healy, Matthew Murray and Colin Henderson will be hoping for more appearances this season. It was a disappointing campaign last year for Cork. The 2022 First Division winners were tipped to stay up, but a combination of poor recruitment and long-term injuries fed into inconsistent form. This meant them finishing second, bottom and relegation via the playoffs to Waterford. This season they would be expected to gain instant promotion. They are the biggest club in the division, with the likes of Waterford, Galway and Shelburne now in the Premier Division, and with the strongest squad on paper. Expectations are high amongst fans, but success is not guaranteed.
Up next, we have Ronan McCarthy, who's going to discuss Wexford.
So, looking ahead to the 2024 season for Wexford FC, in terms of the club as a whole, it's been one of the years with probably a bit less squad turnover than most previous years, which can only really be a good thing when you look back at the form that we had coming into the end of last year. I think, 10 wins from our last 12 or something mad like that before the playoffs. So yeah, naturally for Wexford FC fans, happy to see most of the squad coming back. Our last announcement was obviously Owen Mason coming back for a second stint on loan. That's probably something of a surprise, really, given the caliber player that he is, and so absolutely has to be a positive. The other incoming keeper is Alex Moody. So I think Wexford FC fans are going to be happy, obviously, with the options between the sticks. But when you move forward, I think probably the talking point around the Wexford FC squad is the centre-back partnership. So it was really good news to see Cian O'Malley coming back, but Luke Brown was on loan here last year. He was one of the players who really flipped the Wexford FC form on its head during that spate of summer signings. He's obviously gone back to Shelburne and then now on to Crystal Palace. So Wexford FC had a real slot to fill at centre-back. Obviously Ethan Boyle has returned, but I think we really know his best position for Wexford is probably more centre-mid, as the holding midfielder. So Wexford has made a few signings in that area. Carl Lennox is coming in. What we've seen in pre-season as well is Brandon McCann coming in to slot back at centre-back. Ben Lynch is returning, and obviously, look, you always have the option to return, Ethan Boyle to centre-back as well. But that's probably the talking point around Wexford FC is the centre-back pairing. then moving through the rest of the back line, James Crawford, Reece Webb, your fullback options were, I think, really underrated last year. I mean, they got plenty of credit, but, in terms of being, 18, 19 and performing as well as they did, I think they didn't quite get the level of credit they deserved, because they really, really were excellent. Both returned to Wexford this year. Midfield options then, fan favourite Corbin Piper returned down under. There's plenty of options still there for Wexford FC. Luca Lovich returns. Aaron Robinson's back from injury, so he's practically a new signing. Keane Corbally, I'd say the club had to work really, really hard to keep him. He returns to Wexford again this year. Top quality. Darrell Livingston's really matured as a player. He's doing excellent. Brandon McCann, obviously midfield choice. And Caleb Harnett. Plenty of options there for Wexford in the middle of the park, no problem. Attacking options, they're there as well now for Wexford, where, maybe at the start of last season they were a bit light. Jordan Adiame obviously didn't perform at the start of last season in, the way any Wexford fan would have expected. Now Wexford have Aaron Dobbs returning, Thomas Alua has signed, Mikey Rose, brand new signing coming in. That's a really, really strong set of options. Obviously, Keane Corbally supports that position very much as well. But I think one signing that's probably going to go under the radar for a couple of weeks before you really see him perform is Cian Curtis. From having seen a few pre-season games now, I think Cian is absolutely lethal. And, when you look at him play, you wonder how Shamrock Rovers let him go. Because he looks like a really lethal, threatening player, very, very clever. So Wexford have plenty of options going forward. Really good to see Owen Mason coming back. In terms of the overall expectation, I mean, the hope really is to be competing in the top two of Cork City. That's kind of a dream scenario, and it's what a lot of people are expecting. Lots of other squads around the league have strengthened, but that is certainly the hope. We'll find out, I'd say, in 4 to 5 weeks where exactly we stand. Is it going to be that, neck and neck battle with Cork City that we're hoping for? Time will tell.
And on to our next preview from the First Division clubs, we have James Byrne, who is going to discuss Bray Wanderers.
The minimum expectations before last season were for Bray to make the playoffs, and yet again it'll be the same this year, with various bookmakers pricing Bray at second favourites to win the division. Bray were the last club to make a signing out of all 20 clubs in the First Division and the Premier Division, with business not resuming until mid-December. However, they have been very enterprising in the last 6 to 7 weeks. The two most high-profile signings are probably Christian Magerson from Longford. This striker scored 10 goals in the league last year, with Chris Lyons going the other direction. Bray's joint top scorer from last season, who got 9 goals in the league. Killian Cantwell has returned to Bray for his second spell at the club and has been named as club captain for the year. He arrives from recently promoted Waterford. 3 reinforcements have been signed from UCD, headlined by defender Evan Osam, who previously has played for Shells and Rovers and has Ireland underage experience. The 26-year-old is expected to line out at left back this season for the Wanderers. Ben Clark also arrived from UCD. He spent the 2022 season at the Carlisle. Jamie Duggan, 19-year-old defender, has also arrived from UCD. Speaking of Ireland in underage internationals, Freddie Turley from Shamrock Rovers, a 17-year-old with Ireland under-19 experience as a midfielder, has arrived on loan, as has Kieran Cruz, 19-year-old defender from Shamrock Rovers, who appeared against Ferencváros in Europe last season. Another exciting prospect, Josh McGlone, has arrived from Athlone. Josh is a local and will be a fan favourite. Goalkeeper Jimmy Corcoran was poached from rivals Cork and looks set to be a great signing, as he made 23 Premier Division appearances last season. 24-year-old midfielder Shane Griffin has also signed from Waterford, and he'll be a very strong addition to an already strong midfield that has seen the re-signing of Harry Groom, Darren Craven and fan favourite Callum Thompson. Possibly the best news of the whole transfer window for Bray was the re-signing of Cole O'Meara-Hume. Cole is adored by all at the Carlisle and was player of the season last season. Ben Feeney is entering his third year at the club, and if it wasn't for his ankle injury that he sustained against Dundalk in the FAI Cup, where Bray narrowly lost out 1-0 at home, Many believed that they would have made the playoffs. Feeney was Bray's joint top scorer along with Lyons with 9 league goals, and he looked a dead cert to reach double figures in goals and assists last season. Ever-present defender Max Murphy has also been re-signed, and he is entering his second year at the club. Midfielders Guillermo Almiral and Conor Knight have also been re-signed, in addition to goalkeeper Stephen McGuinness. Unfortunately, there were a couple of high-profile departures, with club captain Dave Webster heading to Drogs, which has been a popular move amongst Bray defenders in recent years. Dane Massey retired following 2 spells with Bray and 6 Europa League appearances under Stephen Kenny at Dundalk. Jack Hudson, a rock at the heart of Bray's defence last season, has gone to Australia. Goalkeeper Alex Moody has returned to Wexford following 5 clean sheets in 18 games last season. Rush left-back Len O'Sullivan has gone to Glenavon. Sean Quinn has departed to Lucan. Conor Crowley has gone to Longford. And Yo-Yo Mahdi has signed for Treaty. There's been a big emphasis placed on player development since the merger between Bray and Cabinteely, and the club is now reaping the rewards of this. 15-year-old Billy O'Neill grabbed the headlines when he made his senior debut against Finn Harps last season. Thomas Morgan looks set to have a breakout season for Bray this year, with 2 goals against Wayside Celtic in a friendly and the winner against Wexford in the Leinster Senior Cup recently. Alan Kazinga, Daniel Chukwu and Philip Cooney all made their senior debuts last year and will be looking to make further inroads into the first team this season. These players, in addition to the 2 Shamrock Rovers loanees, look set to be shining lights for the Wanderers this season. In terms of players to watch this season, there have been a lot of transfers in and academy players breaking through, but if I had to just pick one player, I'd probably go for Harry Groom. The silky midfielder was signed from Wexford last season and had a very strong season. His energy on the ball and willingness to make things happen will be key to Bray's success this year. Bray kick off the season on the 16th of February at home to UCD, following draws with Evergreen and Wayside. Form picked up with a win against Wexford, and by the time you're listening to this, Bray will have played Shelbourne in the Leinster Senior Cup. Hopefully they can better the 2-0 defeat that they suffered in a friendly to Shelbourne at the start of the season, where all the players wore Cabinteely kit. The club has now just launched a new kit deal with American provider Capelli Sports, and this has been received very well among fans and players alike at the Carlisle.
And next up we have the Finn Harps preview by Rory Morrow.
Hi Luke, this is Rory here for the Finn Harps preview of their First Division campaign for 2024. I'm going to start off with a quick look at the signings that Harps had made and their transfer activity over this winter. They had a pretty good window. They brought in a lot of experienced faces, including the former Sligo Rovers midfielder and captain David Cawley. He brings a lot of experience to the Harps midfield, along with their captain Tony McNamee, who they signed to a contract extension over the break as well. So Harps midfield is going to be bolstered big time by that. They've also brought in Success Edogan, a striker from Treaty United who's pretty prolific at a First Division level, alongside Conor Turish, who may be a familiar name to Harps fans given that he was with the club in 2022 and actually voted the club's player of the year that year. Turish is a right back. That's his position, and will fill the gap left by the departure of Derry City loanee Keating Porter. As for players to look out for, really look no further than Ryan Flood. The American left back was signed last year, and he was finished with Harps' top scorer last season. Flood notched 14 goals across all competitions, the league and the FAI Cup in 2023. He's threatening from set pieces, really reliable on free kicks and penalties, and he provides a lot too. So Harps are really going to want to build a team around Flood and his offensive abilities. Academy players breaking into the team. There were a lot of academy players who broke through to the first team squad and saw first team football, especially in the second half of last season. Sean O'Donnell and Aaron McLaughlin. Sean up front. McLaughlin memorably scored on his debut, having come off the bench in a 3-2 win away to Longford Town. I think it was the winning goal anyway over the summer. Whilst O'Donnell just grew, and he had a couple of appearances at the start, and he just grew in stature He's very pacey, very much a live wire, and very hard to contain. O'Donnell's very versatile as well. He can play on either flank as well as up front, and he will cause a lot of teams, a lot of fullbacks, a lot of problems. We've also got Matty Mackinson, Max Hutchison, two young players who came in to the midfield and defence and really slotted in quite nicely, as well as Jamie Watson, a central defender who came in when Daithí McCallion got a season-ending injury in summer. McCallion had been brilliant for Harps, but Watson came in for the back end of the season and was pretty good in central defence, alongside the more experienced figure of Nou Baba, who has also signed a contract extension for this season. Looking back on last season, of course, a year ago, Harps was starting anew with Dave Rodgers at the managerial helm. Rodgers would only last until the end of September 2023, however, when he resigned and Darren Murphy was placed in interim charge. Murphy has since been given the manager's role on a more permanent basis, and Harps had a pretty encouraging end to last season in the First Division. Murphy led them to 7 points from the final 5 games, including a 4-1 thumping of Athlone Town at Finn Park, probably Harps' best performance of the season. And that, despite a disappointing all-round campaign where Harps finished 9th, they had a strong end, and it's one they'll look to build on again as they'll hope that they can get themselves a lot closer to the promotion race, albeit if that's just getting closer to the playoff places, which, as we all know, in the First Division is going to be incredibly competitive until the very last day of the season. And really, expectations from Hearts fans, I think, will be for consistency in performances and consistency in turning up. There were a few games last year where Harps, not only were they outclassed, but they just didn't turn up. They were thumped a few times by superior opposition. Galway dished out a 6-0 thumping, Waterford 4-0 twice in Ballybofey, and that's something that Harps really look to eradicate, because they can keep those games tight. They did only lose by the odd goal to Galway at Eamon DC Park in October, so they can keep these games tight. And certainly with Cork City and UCD coming back down from the Premier Division, it's going to be a lot of tough opposition as Harps look to get themselves a bit nearer the playoffs. But even so, an upturn in spirits will first be found by a consistency of performances, and that in itself will see Harps, their fans will hope, challenging a lot nearer the playoff places.
Up next, we have 2 clips for UCD. One is our new member of our Extratime team, Rory Merriman, who discusses UCD's chances this season. Afterwards, you're going to hear the voice of UCD manager Willie O'Connor, who chatted to Extratime's Andrew Dempsey after a match in the Leinster Senior Cup against St Patrick's Athletic.
UCD were relegated from the Premier Division last season, along with Cork City, who lost to Waterford in the playoffs in November last year. Despite their demotion to the First Division, they have a lot of positives to look forward to ahead of their 2024 league campaign. Mickey McCullough from Galway United joins UCD, as well as Niall Holohan from Sligo Under-19s as part of their scholarship regime. Former Shamrock Rovers captain Ronan Finn also arrived in Belfield. The 5-time League of Ireland winner also joins in the student regime, declining an extension on his contract in Tallaght to pursue a 2-year sports management masters in UCD. A big loss for UCD is Jess Dempsey, who recently transferred to Serie A side Lecce in Italy. He was an absolute stalwart in Belfield, and although there are a few defenders such as Alex Dunn and Harvey O'Brien returning from injury, he's a notable loss for the students. Another big loss for UCD is goalkeeper Lorcan Healy, who signs for Premier Division side Shelbourne. He's over 85 appearances for UCD in 4 years, with 20 clean sheets to his personal tally. Himself and Cian Moore were sort of fighting for that first team position last season, so Moore will be relieved that he can now establish himself as the number 1 keeper. The biggest shock of them all was youngster Daniel Babb to Ipswich. He joined the UCD under-15s in 2021, if that doesn't give you an idea of how young this man is. He's played for the under-17s and under-19s international team, as well as appearing for UCD 10 times last season. The return of players such as Harvey O'Brien and Alex Dunn from injury will be massive for the UCD defence. The students conceded the most goals conceded in a single League of Ireland history by any team, with 96 goals, which to me is a clear indication that the players returning of such quality will be massive for them heading into their 2024 league campaign. Having attended some of their Leinster Senior Cup games in the build-up to their league campaign, the resilience and hunger to have a better season was definitely felt from the stands. Alex Dunn, as previously mentioned, having just returned from an ACL injury, came on centre-back and slotted home a winner from outside the box against Usher Celtic. He'll certainly be a boost for the side this season. It took the students 10 games before they saw their first win of their league campaign, and that came against Cork City in April. They only scored 19 goals, 6 of them coming from central midfielder Danu Kinsella-Bishop, who acted as a leading light for the Dublin 4 outfit last season. As I previously said, UCD conceded 96 goals in the league with a poor enough record, claiming just 2 wins in the league. Despite taking an early exit from the Leinster Senior Cup, I feel they should be confident heading into their season. Willie O'Connor definitely used the tournament, as most managers would, as an opportunity to try out different things. I thought it was brilliant to see young players getting the opportunity to prove themselves, but also get to know each other and develop a particular style of play. Players such as Matthew Along, who came on against Usher and poses a speedy and physical threat running ragged up and down the wing. Centre-back Ryan Bowden also got minutes under his belt in the pre-season, having only appeared in 6 games for the senior team last season. The same to say about Aina Clancy, who's only 19, who signed for the club in last July. Keane Moore had to step up to the number 1 shirt with the departure of Lorcan Healy. With the goalkeeper position changing from week to week with UCD last season, he definitely benefited from the pre-season, establishing himself in the nets and getting comfortable with his defenders. It's certainly plausible that UCD have the strongest midfield in the First Division, with Sean Brennan recently released from Drogheda and League of Ireland veteran Ronan Finn running the show with excellent intricate play and great vision and experience between the pair of them. It'll be tight at the top, I reckon, between Cork City and UCD, although the First Division could be full of surprises. I really believe that the newfound strength within the squad gives UCD a real good chance of getting back to the Premier Division next season.
Willie, I suppose we'll just chat about the game first. A 3-1 defeat, probably not the result you would have liked, but the performance probably was there.
Yeah, disappointed to beat, obviously, but again, it's only really a pre-season friendly, and you're looking to get minutes on the player and stuff with a bit of performance. I think our performance was quite good with the ball, without the ball. Just disappointed in the goals that we give away with the quality of players they have. If they cut you open and get a few goals, fair enough, you can accept it, but the first one, the free kick, and that kind of killed us a bit and conceded then after that. But the goals are nearly our mistakes more so than being cut open. So again, Danny got a good goal, and we created a good few chances probably in the first half with the better chances. And a good possession and stuff, so overall you're happy enough, but not with the goals that we give away.
Yeah, because I think we were actually just speaking in the press box. I think for the most part, UCD have been pretty solid in pre-season, maybe bar the opening game in this against Moctus, but I think bar that you've been pretty solid defensively.
Yeah, we have, and again there's a lot of rotation with our defenders and stuff, and we've four good centre backs there, and obviously Aina Clancy had to sit out today because of the minutes and stuff we had to play during the week in the Harding Cup, and you had to take Harry Curtis and Wells off because they would have played a good bit. But no, we do look solid, compact, and again, any of the goals seem to be from our mistakes more so than teams cutting us open, which again, if we cut them out, we could be okay.
Yeah, and look, I think, as you said, the Harding Cup, you won that this week, so that's obviously a good thing to have for especially the younger guys coming through. Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's great for the club. They won those college competitions, and again, we have a lot of players in first year this year, and like some Maggie Raga could play the tournament, top goal scorer. That's a big confidence booster, and it helps that way as well, and gets the boys winning games. So it just means we have to alter our minutes and stuff in terms of the games this week and the game last week. But it's great for the lads during the week to play them competitive games and get the minutes in the bank, and obviously they won them as an added bonus.
Yeah, and how does that whet the appetite for the start of the season? Does that just maybe get things you get more excited as the weeks go on now at this stage? Or?
I think it is. I think just in general, everybody at this stage now just wants to get it started. We've one more week, and then we're preparing then for the Bray game. So yeah, that's pre-season. You're trying to get the fitness up, and then just you're looking to get going. So that's the focus now.
Yeah, and have you been able to watch much of Bray so far, or have you got to see them yet?
No, I haven't seen them at all. Maybe try to get a look at them over the next couple of weeks, but no, we haven't got a chance to get a look at them.
Yeah, I don't think your time would have overlapped with Ian here, though, would it?
No, it wouldn't. No, but I would know Ian very well. I would have been managing Irish schools, and he'd been the Leinster manager, so I'd be talking to Ian a good bit. I know him fairly well through the schools football.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be a different dynamic between the two of you, ripping each other's heads off on the sideline.
Yeah, it'll be totally different. I don't think it'll get too heated or nothing, but it'll be a good rivalry there as well. But no, he's a good lad and doing well. Looking forward to the game.
Yeah, and look, I think in terms of the season overall, I think there probably is a decent opportunity for UC to start, being able to compete this year.
Yeah, you would hope to compete again. Obviously, there's some very, very good teams in it. No games will be easy and stuff. Again, Cork will be big favourites in that. But yeah, I think if we can perform their best, we can do well anyway. But it's getting that consistency, and if we can get that, then and give it a run. But listen, you have to take it one game at a time and see how it goes. It's a long way away. We're just looking to improve on the small things that we need to improve on from today and take that into next week.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, I know I've mentioned it before, but Ronan and Finn, you can just notice them at the very start of the game, just even telling players where to be in certain position before the game kicks off. Like, how much of his leadership, obviously, is a massive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, his leadership's incredible. Even at half time, speaking to lads before training, all that stuff, and then that in-game management that we need to get better at, when they press and how to press and stuff like that. He's communicating all that from the middle of the park. Listen, that's a big help for us and brilliant to have, and hopefully that'll make a difference now going forward.
And again, you're going to hear the voice of Andrew Dempsey, who previews Longford Town for the season ahead.
Hey folks, just in relation to Longford Town, look, a massive season ahead for the club, I suppose, in one way more than another, not even just on the pitch. Off the pitch, it's their 100-year anniversary, so I'm sure they'll be looking for a decent season, maybe make the playoffs once again. Look, sure, I'll move on to that in a couple of minutes. But yeah, look, it hasn't been, I think in comparison to last season, there hasn't been too much change. They managed to keep more or less the spine of last season's squad. The ones that were able to stay, I think, were players that, maybe the season before, if there was such a big turnover in players, those guys wouldn't have stayed around. Maybe the likes of a Jack Brady, Kyle O'Connor. So the fact that those two have been able to be retained by Stephen Henderson is a big boost for the club. They've also been, I suppose, smart enough in their recruitment. They've brought in Dean George from Treaty United. I know Longford have been fans of him for quite a while now, and the fact that now they've been able to get him in ahead of the new season is, I suppose, it's a coup in itself, really. They probably struggled for goals at certain points last season, and look, Dean George is one of those players that can make something happen out of nothing. So look, fingers crossed from a Longford perspective, he'll be able to do the business. And look, they've also been able to get Jamie Egan in. Jamie's, I think his father would have played for Longford probably about 20 years ago at this stage, so a nice bit of, I suppose, family ties for Jamie. And look, I think overall they can be happy with their business. Look, they have lost a few. I think Christian Magnusson's the big one that they've managed to lose to Bray. Look, I think if you ask most Longford fans last season, what player would you like to keep, I think he would have been up at the top of many people's lists. But look, they haven't been able to keep him. He's gone to Bray. Dylan Hand, who's after going to their local rivals at Longford Town. Look, I think most of us know the story behind that. Longford announced on Monday, and then 3 days later is that he was in at loan. So probably a disappointing one for Longford Town to lose. But look, I think they have maybe some strength and depth in defence, unlike previous years. They have the likes of Oisin Hand, who is probably a player who has a point to prove after so many injuries last season. And look, fingers crossed for his sake, he can make his impact. But yeah, look, in terms of players to look out for that we may not have heard of before, I don't know, maybe it's unfair of me to say not heard of before, because he was just so unlucky with injury last year. But Francis Campbell, he's definitely a player to watch. He came to Longford, I think it was from Shelburne last year, and look, he had I think he played the first couple of games last season. Then he was, I think, like most of the Longford squad, he was out injured for quite a while. And I think towards the end of last season, he made his mark. And look, having been to one or two pre-season games already, he's probably been one that's caught the eye. So look, he's probably the outside bet to keep an eye on. And look, granted, the likes of Jack Brady, Kyle O'Connor, they're obviously the standout players that, I think Longford probably will be hanging their hats on in terms of, I suppose, their defensive side of the thing, the side of the game. Look at last season for Longford Town. They missed out on the playoffs. It was a really bad start. Took them a couple of weeks. I think their first game, or their first win of the season, didn't come till the end of March against Kerry at home. And like, with all due respect to Kerry last season, I think if you weren't beating Kerry, you were in serious trouble. So Yeah, look, a really bad start. The finish wasn't much better either. But look, they did well during that. During the summer months when they were able to bring in a few more bodies, and I think when they weren't as decimated by injuries, they actually did quite well. So yeah, I think funnily enough, they were the only team to beat Galway, and they did it twice last season. So look, there's definitely some positives. It's just, yeah, they just need to be more consistent. And look, I think you can say that for most teams in the first division. If they are a bit more consistent, they will do quite well. And look, as far as this season goes, I think the minimum aim this season will be making the playoffs and possibly a decent FAI Cup run. We'll see how the cup draw goes before we can say anything about that. But yeah, look, I think playoffs is the minimum expectation at Longford, and I think that's fair enough. Like I think you look at Longford teams throughout the last couple of years, they've always made the playoffs, maybe with the exception of last year. So I'm sure Stephen Henderson he has a point to prove after last season, and yeah, look, without the risk of repeating myself again, I think playoffs are a must for Longford Town.
And our final two. First, you're going to hear a Cobh Ramblers preview by Tom Stafford. And finally, you will hear the Talk is Treaty podcast lads as they discuss none other than Treaty United.
Hi Tom, so yeah, this is Thomas Stafford here, just reporting on Cobh Ramblers ahead of the 2024 League of Ireland season. So obviously last year was a brilliant year for the club, finishing third in the first division, reaching the playoffs, losing to Waterford. Shane Keegan unfortunately had to depart the club in the off season due to work commitments, and we had a number of other departures, the likes of Jack Doherty, Charlie Lyons, Wilson Waweru, Lee Stacey. So obviously some big names moving to full-time clubs and to clubs closer to where they're from. So it's a bit of a rebuilding job, and new manager Gary Hunt has come in from Waterford, and in fairness he's put the groundwork in, and he's got a solid squad together. You know, the backbone of last year's team is still there. Maybe some of the bigger names aren't, but there's still a huge quality in that squad, like Pierce Phillips, Jason Abbott in midfield, really experienced in this league. Same with Brendan Frall, James O'Leary, players like that who've been around for a couple of seasons now, and they've maybe, I think the squad does have a belief that, you know, they didn't need the big names fully. These are the players who were there as well, and I think it's a chance for them to really show what they're made of in 2024. I think Cobh last year, a lot of people didn't expect too much, and then they finished third fairly comfortably in the end, won the Munster Cup. So it's a club that it's easy for a lot of people to write them off. I think media in Dublin and in other parts of the country, they don't know the players in Cork. They're not aware of the standard down here. And Cobh is a smaller club. It's easy to dismiss them and say, oh look, they'll finish 8th or 9th again. But when you actually are on the ground here, you see the quality of players, the quality of the squad. It's evident that, look, they're not going to be 8th or 9th. They're maybe not as high as 3rd, but I think there's a squad there that can finish in the playoffs. Maybe 4th or 5th is more realistic than the upper spots, but I think there's still a very experienced League of Ireland core there. Have brought in a few names in the off season, still a few to be announced as well, but Jack Larkin is probably the biggest one, coming back from America. He's a Waterford native, was with the club previously, and he's a very talented player. He'll kind of step into the Jack Doherty role, and look, it's big shoes to fill, but he looks a player all right from pre-season. He's there with his brother Dean, who's back on loan from Waterford. He had a very good second half of the season last year, so he'll kind of step in where Charlie Lyons is gone. So like, I think Gary Hunt has looked at the areas he's need to recruit, and he's done that for the most part. Like I said, still a few to be announced with 2 weeks to go, but there's a strong settled squad there, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. You know, a lot of League of Ireland clubs can kind of change from year to year, you know, bring in 10, 11, 12 faces, and that might work, but a lot of times there's unsettled teams there, unsettled players, whereas Cobh, you've a big squad there who know the league and have been around. There's a lot of young players who are maybe have a bit more of a chance now in 2024. Liam Kervick's certainly one of those. He looks an extremely exciting talent. He was on loan from Waterford for the last 2 seasons. He's now signed permanently for Cobh, and he's a player, when he gets his chance, I think he'll take it with 2 hands. pre-season he's scored a few already. Scored a few crackers last year, especially when Jack Doherty was injured. He got a nice run in the squad, so he's certainly a player to keep an eye on. You've Michael McCarthy, Charlie O'Brien, underage internationals who are really exciting talents. The club have big plans for those two in particular, so they'll really look to cement themselves as a League of Ireland players in 2024. You've Dara Burke in goal, a young local lad who was deputising to Lee Stacey last year. He's been around the club for a few years. He's learned from like Sean Byrne, Paul Hunt, Stacey, a lot of experienced goalkeepers. So he's certainly well able to step into that number 1 jersey. Up front, it is an area, I suppose there's a lot of pressure there. Wilson Werewerugan with his 13 goals on loan from Galway last year, and then top scorer Jack Doherty with the most goals ever by a Cobh player in the League of Ireland season. So the likes of Matt McKevitt will have to step up. Matt joined in the midway through last year and scored that brilliant bicycle kick against Waterford in the playoff final. So he's certainly a player to keep an eye on, and he'll be the main target man really this year. And I expect big things from him. He would love a run in the squad, and he's going to get that this year. So definitely keep an eye on him as a player to knock a few goals in. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement in Cobh. It's a bit of a transitional spell on and off the pitch. There's been changes in coaching staff and players, but there's still a solid club there. Obviously there's a move to an AstroTurf pitch, which I think is a great move for the club. It's really going to revolutionise having a full-time training base, not having to move from pitch to pitch, both for the academy teams and for the senior team. Obviously people can dismiss it all they want, but from a financial point of view, from the weather, the way Irish winters and weather is going, it's the right decision. Athlone have really reaped the rewards from their decision to turn their pitch into an AstroTurf. Local clubs, communities can get involved, schools. It really opens up the pitch rather than saving it for every 2 weeks to have one senior game on it, which is a waste of resources really. And I think there has been a few people dismissing the AstroTurf online, but it's easy for them to say it when they're looking from afar. But I know for a fact everyone here in Cobh and in Cork is excited about the move. They're realistic at what's the best for the club, and it's it'll be an exciting year ahead definitely. The club is over 100 years in Irish football and continues to grow and continues to make a name for itself. Even though it's a small town, it's one of the smaller clubs, but it's certainly a club that a lot of people have fond memories of, and hopefully this is another season to remember.
Right, I suppose in regards to Trinity United this year, bit of a turnover from the squad from last year that finished 6th, our first time in our history, our short history not being in the playoffs last year, especially after the season before hitting playoffs and the FAI Cup semi-final against Derry that day. But I'd be confident that as a team and a club we bounce back and get where we should be this year again, back into the playoffs and hopefully a bit further. When you look at kind of the squad from last year, there's a bit of a turnover. Like obviously Mark Ludden retiring is a huge loss, a huge blow for us. You've Shawnee Gearans who couldn't commit this year, with the club kind of stepping up into more of a hybrid part-time role. Conor Barry, Dean George, Dean O'Shea, Jordan Tallon gone to Longford. Success gone up on a full-time contract above in Finn Harps. So look, there was a good few outgoings, but I feel we've replaced well. Brought in Conor McNamara back from Galway, which is huge. He was a massive fan favourite for us in our first year, and such a solid player. So when he's back fit, he'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with within the league again. You obviously have the few young lads from Galway after coming down, Evan O'Connor, Oisin O'Reilly. We've David Tarmy on loan, who looks like a really, really good striker, a proper number 9 that we're excited to see this year. With regards to the academy coming through, you have really good youngsters, and I suppose that's what the club was supposed to be based off from the start, is the young local players. So like if you want to look at Robbie Lynch and Darren Owenko, who secured part-time professional deals for the club and played such a big part in the team last year, and they're going to step on again from that. You have Michael Dyke, a young goalkeeper, who will probably get a chance in the cup, hopefully, who will be a really, really good top goalkeeper years to come. You have Sean Costello, Leon Curran, to name a few, coming through from the 20s who'll add. Fionn Doherty, Scott Kirkland. So yeah, no, there's a few academy players that'll definitely break into the first team this year. And just on that, to kind of look through who to look out for this year, you have your usuals that are always your Mark Walsh will always give your solid 8 out of 10 performance, your Ben O'Riordan's, your Stephen Christophers. But if you want to look at exciting players, you got to look no further than Willie Armshaw, and we saw our first sighting of Tom Considine on Friday night against Middleton, and he looked like a real top player. Similar enough in Willie in stature wise, but he's quick as Willie, good on the ball, has a bit of flair about him. So if you have the two of them off the wings, you have a really exciting forward line to go ahead with Enda and Yo-Yo Maddy, who's come back to the club, is a massive signing. If he gets back to the form he was with Shelburne in particular in UCD, he'll himself and Enda will be a force to be reckoned with up front. And look, that would be, from a fan's point of view, that's what we want to see. We want to see the club growing, which it seems to be doing. The academy structure is getting to a place where it should be. The first team are training more often. So hopefully we're pushing into those playoffs. And I'd like to see us, I'd like to think that we'll be finishing 4th or 5th, because if we've learned anything from the first 3 years, that you will give Tommy Barrett a very bare squad and he'll make something out of them. So with a decent squad this year, again, we're excited to see with that extra couple of days of training as well. So our predictions early on from, I suppose, our Talk Is Really podcast, we're going to see ourselves finishing 4th, maybe 5th, but it should be a really exciting season, and we're really looking forward to year 4 in the books for the senior men's team.
And that's a wrap on the First Division preview show. Thanks everyone who contributed to this week's episode. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anyone for Athlone and Kerry, so if any of those fans are out there, we do apologise. But Tom, got me another big year for Extratime this year.
It is indeed. Oisín's voice notes coming up fairly soon as well this weekend, hopefully, and kicking off from there. Look, like you say, it's going to be an exciting First Division. Cork, probably slight favourites at the minute. UCD, even there, the experience, you spoke about the experience of Tim Clancy coming down. Obviously, UCD going to be massively buoyed by the experience of Ronan Finn. And as we've seen throughout this First Division episode, we also have our own team has been bolstered by new additions throughout the off season. Look, I'm looking forward to the season ahead. But with First Division, our own coverage, including, like you say, the voice notes from Oisín, please do join us next week for our Premier Division preview show as well. And until then, look, any comments, anything, please do let us know.
Yeah, and just to come up on that as well, it's been great to get new additions. If anyone is interested, by the way, in writing or getting involved with Extratime, we've put an advert out there a couple of weeks ago. Please get in touch. We're growing. Content's growing. We're going to need more people to write. So if anyone's interested, please do join. Anyway, Tom, thank you for joining. Macdara, as always, thanks for joining. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the First Division preview episode. Enjoy the President's Cup, and we'll chat to you all next week.